Thank you guys for joining me tonight. My name is Jeanette McLeod, and I'm a Platinum Leader with Young Living. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and mute yourself if you aren't already muted, and then we can just focus on, I've got Jody's there. Okay, perfect. We're good. So I have been in Young Living for just over 4.5 years, and this was something that, of course, building the business was not on my radar. Like, it's never on people's radar to do that. I'm not a salesperson. I don't sell things. I don't have time for that, you know, all of those excuses. And then after a few of my friends asked, how do I get my own kit? Chelsea Flaman basically just asked me, what would this look like if you tried? And my husband and I thought about it, and we said, okay, let's give it a try. And in 6 months, we'll reevaluate. And that 6 months was 4 years ago. So here we are. And both me and my husband are now able to do this full time and kind of live life by our schedule and have a lot more flexibility. So I like to keep these fairly short and concise trainings. And if you ever get into a position where you're like, Jeanette, I've heard that 1,000 times. Yes, I am definitely going to repeat myself, because we can squirrel and we can get off on different paths, and that is not okay. We need to refocus, and we need to hear the same thing over and over again, and often the same thing from different people, for it to sink in, for us to stay focused and keeping swimming in our own lane. There's a great graphic that I like, and Adam posted it when Michael Phelps was swimming in the Olympics, and it's got a picture of his competitor constantly looking over at him. And it says, winners focus on winning, losers focus on winners. So you want to be the one who's focused on winning, because you're the winner. So tonight, I want to talk to you about the beginner class. Last week, if you didn't catch it, I'll just recap. We talked about what a beginner class looks like, why you want to have a beginner class, and how many you really should be shooting for. Sometimes we get really sidetracked about doing supplemental classes. So we've done a home class. Now what do? We need to do a baby and oils class, or a pets and oil class. But I'm going to caution you, that should be done at a ratio of 3 to 1. Every 3 home classes you're teaching, then you can teach a supplemental. But you need, if you're not selling kits to people, if you're not changing their lives with the premium starter kit, you're not really doing the business. You're not in business that way, okay? That's the long and short of it. And I'm red in case you can't tell. We talk about what a beginner class looks like, how we start with our story, go through kind of our regular pattern that we want to talk about. So that's what we were talking about last week, and I want to kind of carry on with that. So how do you sign somebody up at a beginner class? I was just at beauty school on Vancouver Island, and it was a really fun and beautiful event, and it was really cool. It was really, really well done, actually. And Young Living events are like no other. You're treated like royalty. As an aside, one of the guests that was there was a little sign on it for the buffet, because lunch was included. There's a big, beautiful buffet, and there was a sign that said, everything is gluten-free. She had to stop and take a picture, because she's like, that never happens. And I said, you've never been to a Young Living event then, because that happens all the time. But we had a mock beginner class done at beauty school as part of a business portion. And it blew everybody's mind when they said how they sign people up is by using their phone. So there's a variety of different things that you can do, and I encourage you to find your niche, find what works for you and what you're comfortable with, and of course it might look differently depending on the size of class you're teaching. But what I have been doing with great success, and I talked about this last week, is I've got my sign up sheet. Okay, this is my form, and if you're in McLeod Momentum, I posted this there. And what it is it's getting everybody's name and contact info. So what I'm doing at the end of my beginner class, you need to have a close. You have to close the class. If you don't close the class, then you're doing yourself a total injustice. If you're not telling people how they can get a kit, you need to just have that confidence. Everybody needs to get a premium starter kit. This is what you need to do in order to get it, because you don't want somebody leaving your class going, well, that sounds really great, but how do I get mine? No ifs, ands, or buts. They're going to know how to get one from your class. So at the very end, what I want to do, the entire goal to your class is to book a class from that class. You want everybody's contact info from that class. If you don't get everybody's contact info from that class, then you have done another injustice, because these are all contacts that you can put in your pipeline that you can nurture seeds with. And if you let them leave without getting the contact info, you got nothing. So that's why this has been fantastic. I've done my last 5 classes, because I didn't start this way. Did my last 5 classes, and it's been a screaming success. So after I give my beautiful class, I tell them and show them and get them to put the oils on. Then I pass this around and I say to them, okay, if I'm going to ask them, can you please put your name and contact info on this sheet that I'm sending around? Don't worry, I'm not going to hound you. I just want to follow up with you one time to see what your best takeaways were from this beginner class. And I'd just like to get some feedback. Then, if today's the day that you want to get your starter kit, go ahead and check off kit, and I can help you get one on its way tonight. If you're interested in having your own class, because you probably heard through this class, you probably thought of a couple people who should be here hearing this. So if that's you, go ahead and tick off the class, because then I can do this in your home with a few of your friends and family, and it'll look just like this. And if you're interested at all in the income opportunity and having some cash flow this way, or getting your products paid for, click the business, and this would look like me going for lunch with you next week sometime and telling you what it looked like for me and what it could very well look like for you. Then I pass this around. Every single person has put their contact info. So I've been able to follow up. And let me tell you, so, okay, they get this sent around, and then I look at it and I say, okay, Amy and Carol, you two want to get a kit. So come sit over by me and bring your smartphone. Then they just bring their smartphone over, and I say, open up your browser, go to become a member, youngliving.com, click become a member, and I literally walk them through right there. They literally, I have signed up more people on my phone in the last 2 months than I had in the 4 years. And it's foolishly easy. So, and I'm right there with them, walking them through. I can tell them, hey, when you use your PIN, it's easiest to use the last 4 digits of your phone number. Oh, great idea. So I'm there coaching them the whole time. I can get them on ER right away. I'm explaining that for them. Meanwhile, the other people are just congregating, and they are smelling the oils, reading the reference guides, whatever. And they're hearing and seeing how easy this is, okay? So how to sign up at a beginner class, that's what I do. I get them on their phone right away, right now. It teaches them to sign up new members right away, because then they look and they're like, oh, I can do that. I can figure that out. I also make sure to let them know that this is, having an account like this, if you've ever ordered off of Amazon, same thing, no different. It's, you need an account to order off Amazon. You need an account to have a Facebook account. Like, it's the same thing, so it's no different. And that has worked really well for me. The other thing too is that I touched on last week, and I really want to stress, is I think it is important for them to have something to take away with them. And so what I did is I uploaded, how do you sponsor and enroller them? Okay, so yeah, yep, exactly, under the host. So I did a class, and for example, I'll use real names. Jolene's sister Carissa was there, and Carissa brought a friend. So then all I did was take Carissa's member number, and that's the one that I entered in for sponsor and enroller. And actually, Carissa's friend brought a friend. So we just had to sign her up first. Then when we got her member number, we signed up her friend second. So then everybody got the appropriate referral bonus. Another thing that's worked for me is they've clicked off kit. Everything's been really busy, and I've said, I'm going to call you tomorrow. What time is good? And I called them the next day, and I said, let me walk you through. So it wasn't as easy to do it on the phone right there, but it was super easy to do for me to help her sign up on the computer in like 3 minutes. So that's what I did with sponsor and enroller. It still goes to the right person. And yeah, it's just the host at the beginner class. So then leaving with something I think is really important now, because it dawned on me after 4 years of teaching beginner classes, how many people left the class thinking, you know what, I really should have got a kit. And they had no idea. and maybe it fell to the wayside and they didn't pursue it. So what I did is created a page where it gives you instructions on how to sign up. So it gives you the picture of what it looks like at the Become a Member portion, and then it gives you step-by-step instructions. Go to youngliving.com, click Become a Member, enter the sponsorship number in, da-da-da-da-da. And so I'm going to print that out, and then on the other side, I want to have the beginner kit. So what I did, this is what I think is smart, just my thinking, like, again, eat the fish, spit out the bones if you don't love it. So I photocopied this page from the flipbook so that they've taken all their notes on here right now, and they've got this piece of paper that's this page photocopied. They have it to take with them, and then on the back side of that paper will be the instructions to sign up with a kit. So if they leave, they're armed with that. They're armed with their notes, and then they're armed with instructions on how to sign up. So my story behind that, and that I just kind of was like, oh, that's interesting. I did a class, had my list of people, and I followed up 3 days later. I didn't wait any longer. I called them back 3 days later. And 2 times this happened to me in 5 classes, 2 times this happened, where they didn't check anything off. I was just calling to love on them and say, and really I kind of wanted feedback about the class. Like, what did you think of it? Did you like it? What did you think of the location? Because it was at a coffee shop. And the woman said, you know what? I really should have got a kit. And I said, oh, really? Like, yeah. She's like, yeah, I thought about it after. Came home, talked to my husband. But you know what? I really should have gotten one there. And I said, okay, well, I can get a kit coming on its way right now. Do you have a couple minutes? Yeah, absolutely. So I signed 2 people up when they had originally not put anything on here. So can you imagine if I had not had collected their contact info? Those would have been 2 kits that would have slipped through my fingers. So the first one is sign them up on their phone. Has worked really well for me. The second one is calling everybody that you got the contact information for. And now I really want to talk about the follow-up aspect of it. But follow-up is really what triggers people's anxiety. They don't really know what that looks like. They don't know what to say. And I just want to reassure you, the verbiage definitely takes time. It might roll off my mouth very easily, but I've had 4 years of rehearsing this. So give yourself some grace. But at the end of the day, if you are authentic and you actually care about helping people, you're going to do just fine. And we have the follow-up 3 days after, 10 days after, and 30 days after. So it sounds like a lot, but you want to build that rapport with them. You want them to start trusting you and realizing that you're not there just to sell them stuff. You're actually there to help them switch out to a chemical-free lifestyle. So what that looks like for me is just loving them. So I call, and truly, I call the first person, and she sounds like a major cow and really wishes that I hadn't called. I'm dropping her like a dirty shirt. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye. Name goes in the garbage. I'm not here to convince people. I'm not going to pull teeth. No, I'm not calling her 10 days later. We are done here. So don't feel like, use your gut, use your intuition. If it really sounds like somebody is like really, they just don't want you, or they say, look, I'm really not interested, take them off the list. Like, that's my huge advice for you there. So I call, hey, Jill, it's Jeanette from Young Living. I'm following up after the beginner class. And that's when I start asking about her. So the reason we have 2 ears and 1 mouth is because we should listen twice as much as we're talking. And I want to ask her questions. So what was your biggest takeaway? What was the favorite oil that you smelled when you went around? Have you had any experience with Young Living? Those are questions that can actually get them talking about things. Or when you came, what was the one thing you'd wished that maybe oils might be able to help you with? So now she's giving me some insight into her life, you know, how she's feeling and what she might be looking at oils for. So I do that on day 3, okay? Now, this is when she hesitates. asked for a kit. She did not put kit, class, or business, okay? Nothing. I'm just calling her because I want feedback about what she thought of the class. Perfect. Then she says, well, you know, I was really interested because my, you know, neighbor had been talking about it, and my husband really snores really bad. I don't know, maybe an oil could help with that. And I can say, absolutely, an oil would help with that. I think I have a few ideas for you. Would you mind if I just dropped something off? I'd love for you to try it. I'll give you some instructions, and I'd just love to see if that could help. I'm just loving on her, because if the one thing that has remained consistent in my career as a network marketer is generosity wins every time. And the way we win people over in our company is by getting it on their body. So if we can help get that on their body and help them feel that difference, we will have helped, and they will have felt a result. So that's really the goal. So day 3, Jill says snoring. I say, great. Can I drop something off or pop it in the mail if they aren't local? Because like I drive an hour north to Edmonton or an hour south to Calgary. Popping it in the mail is much easier. Can I pop this in the mail? You get their address and you can pop something in the mail. So I might send something else too, like a quick look or something from Oily FX, a rack card about Ninja or something like that, and a little personalized note. Then I can call her 10 days later, because guess what? She will have received it already and been applying it. So now I call her 10 days later and I say, hey, did you get the sample? Do you have any questions? Do you like the smell? What about it don't you like? Have you applied it? Can I give you some more? And there's no, do you want to buy? The kit's on sale. There's none of that. It's just, have you tried it? Yes, I tried it, but it didn't seem to work, okay? Maybe it's another sample. Maybe it's a video you can send. It's about exposures. So you're giving her another exposure, you're building trust, and you're building rapport, and you're just trying to help that person. So then, of course, you can follow up 30 days later, because now you've given them a bit more time, so you're not hounding them. And maybe you've sent another sample, or you've connected with them on Facebook at this point. You can send them a little Facebook message and say like, hey, just thinking about you. Have you tried the cedarwood yet? What do you think? And then you've created some kind of foundation with them. So even if it's in 6 months, they say, okay, I'm going to give Shailene a call, because you've built that rapport, because they now have that loyalty with you, okay? So that's somebody who didn't buy a kit, or, you know, hopefully by then they'd be like, oh my gosh, you're the bomb. These oils are awesome. Yeah, get me a kit, right? So you've nurtured that seed. And of course, then they have a kit. So that one I think is kind of easier, where you could say 3 days later, I might stretch it to 5. Did you get your kit? Okay, great. Have you opened it? Did you try your diffuser? Did you make sure to lift the half part and get your Ninja samples, put those in the fridge? It's just a care call. You're just calling to care, make sure they didn't miss anything in it. And then 10 days later, maybe you'll have given them some ideas. Okay, every morning before you get out of bed, I want you to put a drop of peppermint on your hand and rub it in and tent it over your nose and take in 3 big breaths. I really want to know how that makes you feel. So give them like 2 ideas. And then when you follow up in 10 days, what's been your favorite? Have you tried that? Did you've got some questions to ask them, and you just care. And then it could be 30 days later, again, just touching base. If they have an essential rewards order that's about to process, great time to follow up with them on that, just to make sure they're not going to receive anything that they don't want to receive, that they've met the PV requirement. And of course, if they're not on essential rewards, then that's a great time to say, hey, would you mind if I popped some info in the mail? If you're not doing the Bloom Club, then it's like, hey, would you mind if I popped something in the mail for you? I've got some really great information. And maybe that's when you would send them one of these little, pocket references. This is a nice little ditty for people. And you can send them, again, rack cards, animal information, whatever kind of resonates with them. And that's what the follow-up would look like, okay? So I really want you to know that the follow-up is the crucial part, because that is what's bringing them into the community and getting that rapport built, so that they can actually pick up their phone and text you or find you on Facebook and be like, hey, Darby, I think you said purification was good for something, but I don't remember. They have that comfort now to contact you because you've reached out so much. So that's what the follow-up should really look like. And as I said in the beginning, and it's not changed at all, investing in those samples and getting product on people is really what skyrocketed my business. Can you all agree that when you're out, and I'm sure we've all been out in some circumstance, where somebody's like, oh, I'm really hot, or I have a headache, and you say, here, try this peppermint, and they put it on and they're like, whoa, you've got that reaction from people. We've seen that for ourselves, so we know getting it on their body produces that reaction, that just awareness of what this product can really do. So invest in the postage it would take to get a sample to somebody. Invest in that sample of dropping it off to them, whether it's an empty, I know people have asked before, what do you do with all your old empty bottles? I save them for samples. I clean them out and I put them in a little box, and that's what I use for samples. Often I won't even clean them out. I'll just leave their regular label on them so that I grab a Thieves bottle to give somebody a Thieves sample. Perfect, like no brainer. And it's no work for me. So the follow-up and the exposures are really what's key, because I was just having this conversation and with another builder, and I said, like, Eric Worre is a big one on exposures. What is the next exposure for them? And that's really what we want to be concentrating on, is what the next exposure is. But then again, I have written down here, listening to your gut. If you feel like it's a dead-end road, if you feel like you're in a game of convincing somebody, move on, drop it. Don't beat a dead horse. Or like I just heard, the best way to ride a dead horse is to get off. So that's really what you want to do, is just get off the horse. And just trust in yourself too, that more people will be coming in your pipeline. Why? Because you know what you're doing and you're collecting people in your pipeline. And so when you host a class, you get their contact info. Ideally, you're looking for that one excited person who's now going to host a class for you. And they're going to open up their network of people. And you can keep going down in your pipeline and looking for those excited people. Okay? So following up 3, 10, and 30. Sign them up on the phone. Use your sign-in sheet or your, I don't even know what this is called, but it's my sign-up sheet, sign-in sheet, whatever. Love on them with samples. Find out how you can help them, and then follow up thereafter. Invest in postage. Go with exposures, but follow your gut also. And then the last one that I just really want to touch on is your mindset. So when you're going into these scenarios where you're following up with people, we have a tendency to tell ourselves stories. And I encourage you, I ask you, I invite you to not tell yourself any stories. Because we start to say, oh, they probably don't want to hear from me. They're probably going to be annoyed if I call them. This is probably a bad time. Stop telling yourself stories, because you don't know any of those answers. Those are stories you're telling yourself. So stop doing that, because you don't know. You don't know. You are assuming, and you know what happens when we assume. So not worth it. Your mindset needs to be in a place that you can truly believe you have something worth sharing. Because when I deal with the excuse of, well, yeah, you can do that, but I'm not a salesperson. I've never sold anything in my life. I've shared and I've taught. That's all I've done. And so when you can get your mind into that place that you have something worth sharing, you have something valuable, and you are on a mission to helping people get rid of chemicals that are potentially harming themselves or their family, then you are in the perfect place to give them a call. If you feel like your mind is not in that place, contact your upline. The upline is the best person to pump your tires and let you know and remind you that what you're doing is for a better cause. What you're doing is for a greater vision. So getting yourself in the best mindset is definitely necessary, and not to tell yourself stories before you go. So actually being able to imagine yourself having an amazing conversation. They're happy to hear from you. They're so glad you called because they really enjoyed themselves and they can't wait for their kit to arrive. Or now they have 3 people that want a kit too because they couldn't stop talking about it. Imagine that scenario, because you do have something valuable to share. And you know, confidence is a tricky thing. It's not necessarily natural, especially if we're telling ourselves stories. But if you need support in that department, again, reach out to your upline, or if you've got a running buddy, somebody who's a cross-line person who is kind of in the same situation or same rank as you, that's an ideal running buddy. I've had numerous ones over the years where we can just reach out and say, oh my gosh, I'm going to make this call and I don't know. And they say, no, get that junk out of your head. You can do this. You know you can. We've got great things happening. We've got great products to offer them. And our job at the end of the day is to offer it. Their job is to decide. So it's our job to, if you believe in your heart that you're being authentic and you're just trying to help people and you know you're trying to talk to them in the best way you know, you have something worth sharing. So remember that. That kind of ends my call. In a nutshell, I feel follow-up was meant to be my biggest chunk with this, but obviously it's layered. And I had a fantastic, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, but I want to add something else. So thanks for